Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Willow Smith album, Ardipithecus. Rock Nation artist, singer, songwriter, and daughter of famed rapper and actor Will Smith, Miss Willow Smith, suddenly drops her debut album out of nowhere. Here it is. Something I think most people would have expected about 5 years ago when the release of Willow Smith's original breakout single, Whip My Hair, came out. But after the release of this song, it seems like she quickly sidestepped the tween pop direction she had been going in. After Fireball and 21st Century Girl, it seems like she just hit the emergency ejector seat button on that shit. Aside from a couple mysterious SoundCloud drops here and there, she pretty much vanished out of the music world's eye. But now she's just suddenly teleported in front of us with this new full-length album with a title and a cover that has kind of an evolution theme to it. It seems that Willow has taken this time of relative silence to become an altogether different and new music artist. Following this evolution over here, where it would seem she ends at like some Dr. Manhattan looking physical form. Sure, I didn't really even expect this record to come out, so I'm not really sure what to expect of it. All I know is that I'm probably not going to get another radio smash on here or anything like that. She's obviously gone out of her way to not define herself as just a tween Billboard chart-topping pop artist on this one, so what is she doing instead? Not anything I particularly enjoy. The opening track on this thing is easily 5 of the most pretentious minutes of music I've had to sit through this year. It's so convinced of its greatness. It's so convinced that it's making some kind of grand, poignant, urgent statement that we all need to hear, some kind of self-defining statement that's going to solidify Willow Smith in our minds as a legitimate, weighty, thought-provoking artist. Where right out of the gate she drops this line, classification and organization are ruining the minds of our generation, which is like the biggest truth bomb that anyone's ever dropped since Hobson's "Did the Man Who Invented Go to College" line came out on his last LP. And she follows this line up with, I said it. Like, yeah, I said it. That really needed to be said. But the track in a way is almost like a tale of growth about how Willow kind of came to the point where she is now, where she would be making this music, talking about herself, the fact that she's a teenager, talking about being afraid to do things like, I guess, the singing and the rapping that she's doing on this record, but kind of being encouraged to do so, and now she's come to this point. And she tells this tale and many others with these really yelpy, grating vocals that I'm kind of on the fence with. In one breath, I like that she's doing something really raw and in your face and a little on the fringe. Her voice certainly has its quirks to it, a lot of range, although she doesn't have full control of a lot of that range, as it seems like she's kind of just spinning out of control a lot of the time while she's singing. And in another breath, a lot of the time, her singing just seems so convinced of its own artsiness and uniqueness. I feel like she's turned on to some interesting things. I hear notes of maybe a little bit of Bjork or even Robert Smith, if I would even get ambitious enough to guess that she's listening to The Cure or something like that. Maybe even a little Alanis Morissette or something. But sometimes her lyrics are so stomach-churningly narcissistic. I mean, her words sometimes read like her brother's Twitter feed, which is nuttier than a squirrel turd. Every attempt this record makes at sounding deep and artful, it just sounds so out of touch and shallow. Like on the song Natives of the Windy Forest, which is pretty much just this indigenous music knockoff that's so short and half-hearted it might as well have not even been on the record. There's quite a bit of filler on this LP, so, don't expect to hear too many well-developed songs from the beginning to the end of its almost 1 hour runtime. Then we have the song Drugs, with a Z, because it's rebellious, where I don't really feel like I'm crying with Willow Smith as much as I'm crying for Willow Smith on this track. The production, and this song is not unique in this, is so painfully plain and musically rudimentary that I'm just not really getting much from this song. But the track is mired in Willow's emotions, her sadness, her angst. The angst on this album is so oppressive and such a focal point on this thing. If you're not wrapped up in Willow Smith's emotional tornado on this record, then I don't think this album is going to have that much for you. Because musically, a lot of the time, this thing is kind of a barren wasteland that anybody with maybe about a year or so of experience in a variety of different DAWs and electronic music programs could probably pull together anything that is on this album. So again, it's kind of a barren wasteland, kind of a desert with the occasional snake bite of yay! But it's not so high-pitched and it's not so out there that it's like going down Yoko Ono territory or anything like that. It's very safe despite the fact that it's convinced it's doing something artsy and experimental. Again, I appreciate that it seems like she's trying to do something a little more out there, a little more artsy with her voice. She's totally in control of her artistic self, but I think that control of self requires self-control and discipline, which this album has very little of, as it sounds like Willow Smith and whoever she's working with on the variety of these songs think that every noise that comes out of her mouth is great and just worth slapping onto the record. And it's just not true. Very few of the tracks on here are well groomed, and the few that do have very well defined verses and choruses and all that, like the song Why Don't You Cry, are actually really awful when it comes to writing. Like really mediocre writing. The lyrics and just the hook of the constant why don't you cry? Again, unless you're really emotionally invested in Willow Smith as a person and you just kind of want to hear her narcissistically explore her young and angsty emotions on a full-length album with very little in the way of sonic or musical appeal, then this album is for you. But it's not for me. I'm feeling a light to decent 3 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? And if you have, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And smash the like. You're the best. Willow Smith. Music. Anthony Fantana. Needle drop. Forever.